Well, good morning. It is February the 18th already, and I am a couple weeks behind as usual. I know a lot of you will be surprised at that I would be behind on making my videos and things. But I'm doing my review of a sermon from 2 weeks ago. And I just want to catch that up and do a couple other sermons today as I continue with PJ's podcast with Pastor Joel Rice. Anyway, thanks for joining me, and hopefully this will be educational or edumacational or something like that. Anyway, well, we've been going through the I Am Love series, that God's law shows His love and who He is, and as we live in that and express those things, we start to understand more about who God is. And when we look at the first 4 commandments, if we don't understand and live in those, the rest of the commandments don't make any sense. Okay? Let me explain that. See, He's inviting us to join Him in relationship, right? Because He is the only true God. He's the real creator. He's the real deal. None of the rest of them are even close. They're not even I don't know. Second wouldn't even be an acceptable word, because that doesn't even make sense. They're not even on the same sport. You know what I mean? It's a bunch of ice figure skaters trying to play basketball, and it doesn't. And they brought their skates. It just doesn't. And they're just not there. It just doesn't make any sense. And so it wouldn't be loving for us to worship, for Him to allow us to worship anyone but the real deal. And He wants to reveal Himself. He wants us to know Him. And if we place Him anywhere else but first, we're falling short of what He designed us for. And that's really important for us to understand. It's part of us being created in an image, which we've talked about in the other podcasts. And He's revealed Himself. That's the other thing. It's like, we don't need to make a imaginary image like Zeus or Jupiter or any of those fake gods, because He has revealed Himself. He has shown up in person. He did walk with them in the garden. He did come to Abraham and talk to him. He did take on flesh and dwelt among us, Jesus, right? He has revealed His true image, and we don't need to go looking or making up our own version of it. What we're here to do is to learn and to grow in the knowledge of Him and receive that. Not try to put God in our box or how things work in our box. And in that reality, when it comes to the 3rd commandment of not taking His name in vain, it's not just swearing falsely by His name or using His name as a swear word. We've talked about that in the other sermon, but it's saying that we're a follower of Jesus, a follower of God, and then not living like it. And we're saying one thing and doing another, and that's taking God's name in vain. So if you're not, as the old saying goes, practicing what you preach, do me a favor and shut up. That includes me, by the way. I mean, either shut up or straighten up, one of the two, right? Because I want to reflect the image of my God. Now, I say that in a very blunt, straight way, but it's not about doing better, and we'll get to that. It's residing in His love, because love is that motivation. And with that, if I'm going to change, if I'm actually going to live up to what I say I am, I'm going to need to spend some time. Taking time and Sabbath resting. Now, there's a lot of stuff, and we can argue about this, and you might be a Seventh-day Adventist or some other group that really believes that you have to take Saturday off, and I'll be honest with you, that's great. That's really great. I think that if you dedicated a day to rest and fellowshipping with the Lord and with His people all day, that's great. But we do have information in the New Testament of not letting people judge you of whether you observe the Sabbath or not. And the biggest thing is that I feel is that if you're not taking any time to rest in the Lord, specifically in that relationship, then you're not really a follower. I mean, if you say you're married, yet you never spend time with your spouse, right? If you say you have a family, yet you never spend time with the kids. Now, obviously there's dry spells and times and places, and with the way the world is working, and exactly what I think Paul wrote this for was, when you think about the Sabbath, and for the Jewish people, it was a mindset, it was how they were designed, and they worked themselves into observing and obeying that to the best of their ability. But a lot of people that had come to Jesus, the Gentiles especially, were slaves. And they didn't have the ability to tell their slave master that they couldn't work on the Sabbath. And it's not really what it's about. And so as the Gentiles came in, there had to be some adjustment to allow them to still take the time to know Jesus and rest, and not necessarily be condemned because you didn't do it on the Sabbath because of circumstances. So, but God is worth the time. Are you resting in Him? Are you spending time with Him? Are you fellowshipping with His people? Is everything else a priority over Him? There's a problem. So, see, it's God's love for us that He gave us the Sabbath. He loves us. It's God's love for us that He revealed Himself to us. It's God's love and grace that allow us to exist and to call on His name, even though we fall short of that call at times. It's God's love that moved before He ever put down all the doodahs and stuff like that of how it's supposed to work. He wants to show us that He cares even before we're really fully sold out. And that's a practice. That's something that we have to continue to strive to know Him more and allow Him to change our hearts and how we think, instead of listening to this world. What a mess this world is, isn't it? Because a lot of times when we look at God's love and we think of the law, we just kind of go, meh, meh. I mean, seriously, I'm a good person. I didn't kill anybody today. Yeah, I yelled at the kids, or yeah, I was mad at the wife, or vice versa. Yeah, my boss is a jerk, and I wish he would drive off a cliff. But other than that, I'm fine. And is that really what God's law is about? Is that how God treated us? Is that what? The answer is no. No, in His holiness, God's wrath is upon us, right? Because justice in doing the right thing is just right. However, His desire is for us. His love is for us. And so He sent His Son to take that wrath upon Him. Big deal, right? And hence we should know Him more. See, He wants to pour His love on us over and over and over and deeper and deeper and deeper until it fills us up in a way that we can actually let it spill out to those around us. It's not about just doing better or choosing to follow the 10 Commandments or choosing this or I'm going to do better. There is some of that, but it has more to do with us knowing Him and allowing that to fill us to a place where we can do the next commandment, the 5th commandment, and that's to honor our father and our mother. Because it says that if the people of Israel did that, they would live long in the land that they're about to receive. And I know in our broken world that when we say that some people just kind of cringe. I'm supposed to honor that person that hurt me or sinned against me and things like that. But let's start with the main thing: decent parents. Okay, you have 2 decent parents who did the best they could, and we, when we're teenagers, late teenagers, start to tend to rebel and stop listening to them and think that we've got everything figured out, and instead of honoring them, we dishonor them. And there's that part of separation and within the brokenness, and they're trying to sometimes get too clingy, and they're having a hard time letting go, and yet at the same time we haven't grown a brain yet, so they're trying to protect us from our stupidity, and so there's this tension and all that kind of stuff. But beyond that, once we grow past that, now what, right? Well, we're to honor as children, while we're still living in their house, whether that we're young adults going to college or whatever, we still need to honor them. We need to obey them because we're living under their roof and taking advantage of the blessing that they are. And even if they're a little wonky and we can see through some of their issues, we still need to honor them while we're still in their household. And he goes back that even in Ephesians 6, by the way, 1-4, Paul mentions that, hey, this is the first commandment with a promise that it'll go well with us and we'll live long in the land. And But the biggest thing is that it's just right. To honor our father and our mother is to actually hear them. Now, obviously, as we grow in Christ, we'll have to see what they're doing and where they fall short and make some judgments, but yet still hear, because there's probably a lot of good things still in what they did and what they were trying to do. And if they're willing to talk about it, we'll learn a ton. It's really awesome. Now, the other message that Paul gives in that particular section, specifically in verse 4, he says, "Fathers, don't provoke your children to anger, but bring them up in the discipline and instruction of the Lord." Now, this is really important because that's what an honorable parent looks like. And if you're an adult and you're listening to this, I want you to hear this in this way, is like, listen, we need to become that kind of person, whether father or mother, doesn't matter. We need to become a person who's not just provoking our kids to be ticked and rebellious and all this kind of stuff, ruling on them with a thumb, or just being so willy-nilly that they, lose their brains because we don't set any boundaries for them, because that's not loving, by the way. And yet at the same time, as we wrestle with things and we bring them up in the discipline of the Lord, trying to teach them the right thing to do, and in his instruction, but there's also a lot of grace and us admitting where we fall short, and there's just a whole bunch to learn. And let's face it, even if you had really, really good Christian parents, there's still going to be places where they fell short, and you mix stuff in from school or from other parents or from aunts and uncles that didn't quite line up, and we might fall short, most likely will. So we're going to have to be humble about it, and yet understand that we're going to try to do the best, be the best steward of God's possession, our children, because they belong to him, not us. We're just stewards, that we can be. And we should desire to grow in that and become, whether we had kids or not, or have kids or not, we can make an influence on the children and the people around us. I know even as an adult, God sent to me extra parents all over the place to help me grow up and to see what real godly parents look like. And I was very thankful for that. And I want to become that kind of person that people see in the reflection of my Father, my true Father, my godly Father, right? So just for fun, Paul, right after this, goes into the slave-master relationship. And you wonder, why is he doing that? But the reality is that slaves on a farm, slaves and kids are the same thing. The fact sometimes the hired hand gets treated a little better. And I think it's the idea of understanding that we're under authority as people. We're under God's authority, and he's called us to be something different. And to learn to submit to one another is very important. By the way, that's how this section of Ephesians starts off in 5:21, is to submit to one another. And then he starts giving 3 examples, and these are the examples, including marriage. So a lot of times, because of our brokenness, we make family into everything. And the more I've seen where the more broken the family is, the more desperate they are to cling to that mess and or to create a new mess and make it good. And I've watched people trying to get away from all the chaos that was their family, and yet they keep running back to them even though nothing's changed. And then they wonder why they get hurt, and they wonder why they're broken. Or they'll run into a new relationship that's full of what do they call that? Codependency and things like that. And it's just a mess. And I wonder why. But the reality is that's what's normal for them. If you grew up in that situation, it just feels normal. And you don't think it like, oh man, I just want to get yelled at today. But it's tend to what we draw to for some reason. Or we go the opposite direction. I'll never be that way. And so we overcompensate and become this whole different thing. And brothers and sisters, we have to realize that we need to heal. We need to seek the Lord over our families. Family is not everything. That's a Mormon idea, and it's not true. Jesus calls out his family at times. He he shows that Mary is outside the will of God twice, which is sin, by the way. I know some people aren't going to like that, but that's the reality. And he even says, you can't be my disciple unless you love me more than your family, including your wife. You love me, maybe even to the point where you have to hate them. You have to reject what they're doing and put, nope, not going there. I'm not going back to that chaos because I'm following Jesus. And they'll take it as you hate them. And for a while, that's just going to have to be what it is. As you heal and get and realize who you are in Jesus and that you have a Father in heaven that loves you, you're going to have to seek him to be well. Do you want to be well? I mean, that's the question that Jesus asked in John chapter 5 to the guy at the pool of Bethesda. Do you want to be well? You know, he'd been laying there a long time, but of course he wanted to be physically well, but that wasn't what Jesus was really asking. Do you want to be whole? Do you want to be sound all the way through? And I know this because later Jesus finds him and says, quit sinning or something worse is going to happen to you. And then he goes and betrays Jesus. So there was a deeper issue that Jesus was dealing with this man. Do you want to be well? Well, that means you may have to separate yourself out from your family, from your parents maybe. I don't know. But you need to get to a place that you're understanding that you have a Father in heaven that loves you and cares for you. He wants you to grow in his love. He wants you to know what the truth is. Jesus even shows us in the Lord's Prayer, our Father who art in the heavens. Let your name be sanctified, set apart. May it be the holiest thing in my life. May it be the thing that I'm seeking. Let your kingdom come and let your will be done. As in heaven, also upon this dirt right here, this earth right here. Give our daily bread to us today and leave behind to us our debts as we leave behind our debtors. That includes our parents, by the way. As we are forgiven by God, let us forgive those around us, right? But let us not be brought into a period of testing, but rescue us from the evil one. So if we're running back to a place that's going to put us into a place of testing, and we know it, that the way our parents manipulate, the way they do this or the way they do that, the way they hurt us before and they still try to take advantage of us in other ways, and we run back to that going, oh, if I could only have... No, you have. You do have. You have a Father in heaven who's a good, good Father. The I Am is a trustworthy Father. He is the place that we can find our wholeness and be well and know that we're loved and that we have a future and that he's got a purpose. He's going to teach us what it looks like to be a good father or be a good mother and what that looks like in a healthy, strong way. So that as he pours into us, it just flows through us into a place that we can actually heal and then actually know what it looks like to be honoring to our parents, as imperfect as they might be. To actually love them, which may be for a while that we just stay at a distance and pray for them to come to know this trustworthy Father. The Father that lives, the patriarch of our lives, that they may come into his design and fold, that they may know him more. That's the greatest honor that we can be doing for our parents, by the way. And love them in spite of themselves. Whether they're alive, whether they're still or not, whether that we might have the possibility of renewing that relationship or whether that might not ever happen, we can still be praying for them and wanting and desiring, even for the worst of parents, that they might know Jesus. And through him know the Father. And know that they're loved and be healed from all the things that they probably lived through. And be forgiven for the things that they did from the God. Not just from you. You were supposed to already have done that. We've already turned that over to God for whether it's for justice or for forgiveness. That's between them and God. I want to heal. And so what I need to do is let God be God. And pray for them that they may know the one trustworthy Father, the great I Am. See, we can heal. We can come to a place of wholeness. And then through that, we can actually love. We can actually take the love of God to the lovable and the unlovable. To the trustworthy and the untrustworthy. Be set free in God. Realize you have the I Am is a trustworthy Father, and He wants to make you well. And He wants to see your parents well. And He wants to see your children well. And anybody else that He might send you that to love on and to care about. God bless you. Have a great day. I hope this has hit you in a place that you can see that God's law is love. Amen.